History is not merely a collection of dates and names. It is a vast, sprawling landscape etched with the triumphs and tragedies of our species. Look closely, and you can see the ruins of great empires, their mighty walls now just rubble, whispering tales to the wind. Imagine the smoke rising from fallen cities, the fields turned barren by endless wars. These are not just stories from a distant past. They are echoes. They are warnings. Within these shadows, a pattern emerges, a lesson written in stone and ash. It tells of moments when darkness descended, not with a sudden roar, but with a quiet, creeping stillness. It arrived when good people, who held the light, chose to turn away and say nothing. This darkness is a force of nature, much like a predator stalking its prey. It seeks out weakness, division, and fear. It flourishes in the quiet corners where courage has been abandoned. Let us journey back to the heart of the Roman Empire. At its height, it was a marvel of engineering, law, and culture. Yet, within its grand colosseums, a brutal spectacle unfolded. Gladiators, slaves, and prisoners forced to fight to the death for the amusement of the masses. Thousands watched, cheered, and celebrated this cruelty. Among them, senators, poets, and ordinary citizens. Many must have felt a pang of unease, but the crowd was a powerful force. To object was to stand alone, to risk ridicule or worse. Their silence became a form of consent. Move forward to the dark ages of Europe. The Inquisition cast a terrifying shadow. People were accused of heresy for slight deviations, for asking questions, or for simply being different. Neighbors informed on neighbors, driven by fear or personal gain. To defend the accused was to become one of them. Fear became a cage, their silence the lock. Consider the rise of 20th century totalitarian regimes. Dictators did not seize power in a day. They rose by exploiting division, promising simple solutions, identifying scapegoats. Apathy created a vacuum. Tyranny marched in unopposed, growing stronger with every silenced voice. The patterns are unmistakable. They are like geological strata, layers of history showing the same process again and again. An empire falls not only from external attack, but from internal decay, when its citizens lose their voice and their will to defend their own values. Each event is a distinct tremor, but they all originate from the same fault line: the failure of good people to act. History shouts its warnings from the graves of the fallen. It begs us to see the connections, to recognize the familiar shadow before it grows too large to fight. These are not abstract ideas, they are tangible realities. The silence of the German intellectual class in the early 1930s helped normalize a hateful ideology. In each case, the cost of speaking up early seemed high, but the cost of eventual silence was catastrophic. Millions of lives, entire continents plunged into war. The chains of tyranny are forged link by link in the quiet workshops of public indifference. Look at the world today, in this year of 2025. Can we not see the same patterns attempting to re-emerge? Division is sown through the airwaves and across digital networks. The predictive power of history is its most chilling and most valuable quality. The cycle of darkness is fueled by a simple, powerful human emotion: fear. Fear of standing out, of being different, of losing one's comfort or safety. This fear isolates us. It tells us to keep our heads down, to mind our own business, to wait for someone else to be the hero. A tyrant's greatest ally is not his army, but the collective fear of the populace. He knows that if he can make each person feel alone in their dissent, he has already won. The silence of one person gives the next person permission to remain silent, and this chain reaction of fear creates a society of whispers. This fear is then exploited to create division. The classic strategy is to break a society into smaller competing groups, us versus them. Once these lines are drawn, it becomes easier to justify injustice. An act of cruelty against them is not seen as an attack on the whole, but as a necessary measure to protect us. The cycle deepens as truth itself becomes a casualty. In a climate of fear and division, lies can flourish. When people no longer believe in objective facts, they have nothing to stand on. They are adrift in a sea of propaganda. Finally, the cycle completes itself with the normalization of oppression. But the story of humanity is not only one of darkness and silence. It is also a story of incredible courage. of defiant light. For every empire that fell into tyranny, there were those who resisted. For every crowd that cheered for cruelty, there was a lone voice that cried out in protest. These individuals and movements remind us that the cycle of darkness is not inevitable. It is a choice, and we can choose differently. We have seen that the silence of many gives power to the few. But the reverse is also true. The antidote to silence is a single voice. Change does not begin with a grand, sweeping gesture. It begins with the small, personal act of courage. It is the student who questions the official narrative. These acts may seem small, as insignificant as a single candle in a vast darkness. But a single candle is all that is needed to show the way. And its light can inspire others to light their own candles, until the darkness is filled with 1,000 points of light, and then 1,000,000. We stand today, in 2025, at a crossroads. We have an advantage that many who came before us did not. We have their stories. We are the ones who can decide whether the next chapter of our story is one of darkness or one of a new and brilliant dawn.